Hello there.
This is where the fun begins.
What's up, guys? Unofficial Star Wars here. I hope you're all doing well, and in this video we have a new update slash tease for the MANDOVERSE movie being directed and written by Dave Filoni. Star Wars director Dave Filoni may have just revealed who the main villain in the Mandalorian movie will actually be. As a part of this year's Star Wars celebration, Dave Filoni was announced to helm his own MANDOVERSE movie, bringing together the various Star Wars stories being told on Disney Plus in a culmination event only fit for the big screen. And so really not much is known about this overall project, except that there's a chance it will be the first new Star Wars movie to hit screens and will focus on the New Republic and the escalating war between it and the Imperial remnants. It remains to be officially confirmed of what sort of threat would be worthy of a crossover event such as this, but it will definitely have something to do with a fan favorite Chiss Admiral. Recently, according to the Mandalorian movie director, Dave Filoni, Star Wars Rebels' big bad Grand Admiral Thrawn will seemingly serve as the Mandoverse crossover film's primary villain. When asked in the summer issue of Empire magazine if he saw Thrawn as the big bad of this New Republic era, Dave Filoni had responded with, "Definitely, in my eyes." But let's be real for a minute. Having Thrawn as the main villain of this Mandoverse movie doesn't necessarily come as a surprise. This is rather really just more of a confirmation from Dave Filoni himself. Of course, Dave Filoni is going to be the director and the writer of this movie, so he is kind of saying that yes, Thrawn will be the big bad of this movie. Really comparing it to what Thanos was for the Infinity Saga for the Marvel Cinematic Universe. If you're a Marvel fan, I have a Marvel channel linked in the description down below. It's also kind of what the same thing of what we're going to have Kang for in the MCU, kind of being that multiversal saga villain. So looking outside of the Star Wars franchise, I think that's one good way to kind of describe it with, but then looking inside of the Star Wars franchise itself, we hear Dave Filoni talking about and discussing how Thrawn is really going to be the big bad during this era. When we look at other eras in the Star Wars franchise and universe, for example, looking at the original trilogy, the big bad of that era was Darth Vader and Palpatine. Same thing for the prequels. It was, well, a number of different villains throughout those movies, but for the most part, it was, at the end of the day, actually Palpatine, with General Grievous, Dooku, and Darth Maul. As Dave Filoni says in full quote with Empire magazine, "Definitely in my eyes, when Timothy Zahn wrote Heir to the Empire, Thrawn became this very iconic villain, because he was different than anything that we've ever seen before. He wasn't another helmet-wearing, lightsaber-wielding bad guy, you know? There's a lot to pull to make characters that are like Vader, because it's so iconic." Ending that quote right there. And we really do already know a lot about Thrawn. Thrawn was the main bad guy in the Star Wars Rebels animated show, so they're really going to be carrying that over into the live-action universe, except you're going to see some of those character motives switched up a little bit more, because this is taking place after the events and that culmination, essentially, of what the original trilogy era was. And so now with Dave Filoni's MANDOVERSE movie, we're seeing a different culmination. They have a different motive, something else that they're working towards, which for this, in this example, it would be for the sequel trilogy. We already know from Jon Favreau is that the MANDOVERSE overall is going to build up to those events of the sequel trilogy, bridging that 30-year gap between Return of the Jedi and The Force Awakens. With the Chiss villain being the primary antagonist of this New Republic era, one can assume that he would be the big bad in the film, set to close out these interconnected stories. Although, to be fair, one thing that had been recently teased by Dave Filoni is that this big MANDOVERSE movie isn't necessarily going to be the end of the MANDOVERSE, saying that in a recent interview with both Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau is that they would love to do more seasons outside of the MANDOVERSE movie and continue on that story. He had also added that Thrawn is a critical player in this time period, something that we already know about with Thrawn and seeing him in the Star Wars Rebels animated show. This character isn't necessarily new. We know a lot about him. He's a tactician, and that they are fortunate to have this character and that they're able to use this character. Something else is that Dave Filoni had discussed. Saying that in full quote from Dave Filoni recently speaking with Empire magazine, but the boldness that Tim had was to make somebody that wasn't like that, like Darth Vader, that didn't have those abilities, but could fight in a different way. In those words, Star Wars, the war part of it. Him being a Grand Admiral, a leader, a military strategist, a military archetype, someone that will outthink you, outstrategize you. That really resonated. He's a critical player in this time period. We're fortunate to have that character, and fortunate to have Lars Mikkelsen playing him, ending that quote right there. For one thing, having Lars Mikkelsen confirmed to play live-action Thrawn in the Ahsoka show, and then also for the MANDOVERSE movie, is a really big thing. Lars Mikkelsen, of course, being the voice of Thrawn in Star Wars Rebels. The thing with Thrawn is that he has a very distinct voice. It's what really makes his character to a point. But then we also have Dave Filoni speaking on how, of course, as I had mentioned, Thrawn is a big tactician. He's a strategist. So when you take out the lightsabers and force welding people and everything like that, the Jedi, the Sith, and everything like that, don't get me wrong, the Ahsoka show is still going to deal with a lot with that. It's just the time period that we're dealing with the New Republic, and especially with the Mandalorian, it's not doing a lot with that, but probably with the Mandoverse movie, we will see a lot with that playing into it. Having a main villain that's more grounded, unlike Darth Vader or maybe Darth Maul, for instance, those characters that have these insane abilities like the Force and have their lightsabers and everything like that, I really do hope and believe to a point that that's going to help humanize our characters more and this overall villain, make us feel for him more. But then also bringing out those real world traits, something that Star Wars is very infamous for ever since the original trilogy and George Lucas having based the original trilogy off of the Vietnam War. We really see that same kind of tradition to a point of having Star Wars playing off of real world political ideals and ongoing wars of such. Playing that into Star Wars and kind of mirroring it to a point is exactly what we're going to be seeing with Thrawn. Him being an actual admiral in the show and then an actual admirals in real world. The Mandalorian showrunner remarked that he wants to make sure that he's honoring ideas set up by the Thrawn creator as well, and the Star Wars Legends author Timothy Zahn, the actual creator of Thrawn. This is something that we had recently talked about and discussed here on the channel, pointing to the little things along the way that he's built to prepare for things that come later. Saying that in full quote from Dave Filoni, there's a lot of factors, especially in playing with a character like novelist Timothy Zahn's Thrawn. I want to make sure that I'm honoring ideas that Tim had, so I want to see what's in his books for the story. In The Bad Batch, there is actually some crossover with the book Heir to the Empire and the military base of Tantis, so there's a little things along the way that I've built across different mediums, all in preparation for things that come later. Ending that quote right there, Dave Filoni, Jon Favreau, you guys are just geniuses. This isn't something necessarily that we have actually ever heard, I believe, from Dave Filoni himself, saying that, like, oh yeah, it's all connected. And we all know that it is all connected, but really just him saying that, oh yeah, it's all connected, and those little things are setting up things for later. It kind of sets up that potential possibility of having the Bad Batch show up later down the road in live action, or maybe just having Omega and Boba Fett meeting in live action and a potential book of Boba Fett Season 2. It's the little things that build the greater story. Right now, it certainly seems like Thrawn will be the big bad of Dave Filoni's Mandoverse, basing off of all of this teases here. Seeing as the character is finally set to make his live-action premiere in this summer's Ahsoka, coming out in August, he is about to become a major threat to the New Republic, being pieced together in the wake of defeating the Empire. It remains to be seen of what exactly the Chiss Admiral Thrawn will be after when he enters the Mandoverse and heads for this culmination event, but Star Wars team seemingly has their faith in Dave Filoni, and the writer/director shall deliver. With Thrawn actor Lars Mikkelsen emphasizing that they got Thrawn right, it sounds as though that they are prepping the character for something a little bit bigger than a single series appearance, saying that the little things are building towards that greater story of how the Ahsoka show is going to really set things up for that Mandoverse movie. If there were going to be any other threats worthy of bringing together an entire mini-universe of shows, Thrawn is exactly that villain that we want, especially for this time period. There's no official release timing for the Mandalorian movie, but it has been heavily predicted from multiple sources like The Direct, Hollywood Reporter, and Deadline that it will be coming out sometime in December of 2026. So let me know all of your thoughts and opinions in the comment section down below. I would love to hear what you guys all think. What are you anticipating to see with Thrawn in the future of the Star Wars franchise and with the Mandoverse movie? I would love to hear all of your thoughts and opinions in the comment section down below. And so until next time, I'll catch you guys in the next video. This has been Unofficial Star Wars. Have a great one, guys. May the Force be with you as always. Peace out.